All right, guys. So today we're going to talk about the discipline of, I guess, putting the quiet back in quiet time. As corny as that might sound, but this is going to be super beneficial. This has been really transformative to me, and so I just want to share just a little bit of what I've learned. Again, a lot of this we're drawing on just putting into practice some of the resources that we were able to get from Bridgetown Church, which some of these, especially for this video, we'll link to in the description here, and in this post we'll link to some of those resources because they're just extremely helpful, and this is a pretty deep topic. So, if the first major barrier for us in having a consistent quiet time is just the setting of the time and setting aside the time that we need, and really that's a barrier that's going to have to be continually sought after, continually overcome. It's just something that it'll constantly, the distractions of the world, the busyness of the world will creep in, and so for the first barrier, of course, is just setting aside the time, showing up, as I talked about in my first video. But the second one is knowing what to do in the quiet time. And so hopefully you've been able to watch Blake and Sarah. If you haven't, go back and watch their videos. They did an incredible job of just sharing some of the practice from their quiet time, what they do, and what the Lord is teaching them through that. But for me in this video, what I really want to do, and this is sort of in the vein of both training and a testimony. So I'm going to share with you just some of the ways I've found the silence part of Silence and Solitude, or the quiet part of quiet time, to be a really transformational discipline that, and I'm using the word discipline intentionally because it really is something that I've had to train myself to do. It does not come natural at all, and I'm still very much a student in this process, but I've already been able to see God work in so many really cool ways. And so I want to warn you up front that part two, this is going to be a two-part video. Part two is going to get a little bit more heavy, but really if the idea, like for me, if the idea for you of quiet sounds unappealing or terrifying or anything like that, you definitely need to stick around for that second part, because it's going to be really valuable to you. Probably more so for the people who are reluctant to put something like this into practice, or may not want to do something like this. Okay, so if you are anything like me, just again, the mere sound of quiet, the thought of it just sounds pretty awful. But of course, different personality types. I know there's a range of dispositions and personalities out there that will respond to this idea very differently. Some of you may be welcoming this and just eager to put some of this into practice. Maybe you already have put it into practice well in your life. However, for most of us, and I think this is true really in the digital age, since the advent of things like Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Netflix, and really just anything around smartphones, we've really trained ourselves as a culture, and certainly as a generation, trained ourselves to be exposed to continuous noise, continuous sound, and we've become increasingly uncomfortable with silence. So the first half of kind of experiencing quiet in our quiet time is going to be cutting off the external noise, and really minimizing all of the external noise as much as we can bear to cut that out of our time. I don't mean this, please, no shame here at all, but I'm sure many of you really have convinced yourself that the background noise helps you focus. Honestly, I don't even doubt that might be true in some form for some of you. However, as I hope you'll see in this video and in part two as well, that having any kind of background noise on, even if you think it's helping you focus, it's going to really run counter to what we're trying to accomplish in this spiritual practice of silence, which really is going to be at the heart of it, is training yourself to quiet the internal noise, and quiet that on your own by the power of the Spirit, rather than just using external noise to quiet that internal noise or distract you from it. So a main part of this focus is going to be quieting the internal noise. So step one is quieting all of the external noise. And this of course means, so the obvious things like no TV, not even in the background. And I would even argue, certainly not legalistically, but eliminating really the use of music, at least during a portion of your quiet time. So now I know that there's a few of you already that I can picture are just really probably upset by that idea, and so let me be absolutely clear, clarify 100% that it is great to have worship music as a part of your quiet time and a part of your devotional routine. However, what I'm saying is that for this practice, for practicing the discipline of silence, I would highly encourage you for at least a short window of your time to seek true silence and to turn the music off. So it can be a part of your routine for sure, but for at least a short window, just have total silence to help you with this practice. But probably more, so those are the obvious ones. Probably less obvious and maybe even more important is going to be quieting the external noise. And I'm calling this the siren song of all our distracting devices. So things like this would include kind of doing your quiet time in a different room away from your TV, computer, video games, whatever you find distracting, certainly your cell phones. Really anything that has the ability to call away your attention, call away your focus. Studies have shown that just being in the same room as these devices, and you probably have experienced this, it siphons off our focus, and inevitably we'll compulsively reach for these devices when we feel even the slightest bit of boredom coming in. I wonder how many of you even just during this video have maybe either reach for your phone or reach for another screen. We just compulsively have these ways in which we want to distract ourselves. And so removing any of that temptation as much as possible. Now, of course, none of this is legalistic demands, but rather just encouragement for you towards getting the most out of your time with Jesus. And the last thing I'll say for this video is to encourage you as much as possible to think about your quiet time the night before and eliminating those distractions the night before. And I've just seen this during the COVID time and a lot of my schedule being disrupted and things changing so much. The effect that not being disciplined around this area has really affected me over the past week or two. And what I mean by that is practices like shutting off all electronics at a certain time at night. For me, it was 9 o'clock that I just shut off any kind of TV, electronics, computers. I put my phone away, as John Mark Comer calls it, parenting your phone. I like that. Parenting your phone to kind of put it to bed, put it away, and that can start the night before in order to really set you up to kind of detox from the digital distractions at night, so that you can wake up in the morning, and if you're doing your quiet time in the morning, before you kind of put yourself back into any of those kind of digital distractions, that you would get into your quiet time, you would have your routine before the noise and distraction of the day takes over.